The flight attendant approached Mark with a firm tone. "Sir, you'll need to move to seat 45F. There's a family who must sit together, and this is the only available spot." Mark looked up from his aisle seat, a spot he'd booked months ago, paying extra for the extra legroom his injured leg required. "This seat was reserved for medical reasons," he said quietly, his voice steady but worn. The attendant's expression didn't soften. "If you don't move, we won't be able to close the cabin doors on time." Mark sighed, then rose slowly, wincing as he made his way down the aisle, settling reluctantly between two strangers in the cramped middle section. Pain radiated from his knee with every shift. Minutes passed, and then the cockpit door opened. Captain Alex Reynolds stepped out, his presence calm but commanding. What he did next changed the course of that flight, and something deeper within the cabin. It was early morning at Phoenix Skyport Terminal 5. Mark had been waiting patiently at Gate 14, his posture rigid, hands folded neatly in his lap. At 75, his silver hair and weathered face showed a lifetime of service and hardship. Mark wore a soft blue jacket, faded jeans, and scuffed leather shoes. A slight limp marked his gait, a reminder of a wartime injury that no time or treatment had fully healed. His destination was San Diego, where his granddaughter was about to graduate from the Coast Guard Academy, the first in their family to wear the uniform. This journey mattered deeply, and so he'd reserved seat 10A, an aisle seat with extra space for his leg. He boarded quietly, exchanging nods with the flight crew and other passengers, carefully lowering himself into his seat. He stored his bag beneath the seat in front and let out a slow breath, savoring the moment of calm. Suddenly, a voice interrupted the stillness. A young flight attendant, her name tag reading Olivia, approached him with an apologetic smile. "Excuse me, sir. Are you in 10A?" Mark nodded. "There's a mother traveling with two small children," Olivia explained gently. "They were separated during booking. The only seats available for them to sit together are your seat and the two adjacent ones." Mark's brow creased in concern. "I reserved this seat because of a service injury," he said quietly, glancing at his scarred hands resting on his lap. Olivia hesitated, then pressed on. "I truly understand, sir. We really appreciate your help. This is just for this flight." He looked toward the front, where the mother held her youngest child close. The two other kids shuffled beside her. Mark then met Olivia's eyes, steady but firm. "What's the other option?" Olivia tapped her tablet. "Seat 45F, middle seat, near the lavatories. It's the only remaining spot." Mark swallowed hard. He knew what that meant. No room to stretch, wedged between strangers, and turbulence near the back. "I can't," he said simply. "My leg won't hold up back there." Olivia's smile faltered. "If you don't move, the flight may be delayed." A hush fell. Passengers nearby shifted their gaze toward Mark, their silent judgment palpable. He could feel their eyes accusing him of selfishness. Mark's jaw tightened. "This isn't right," he said quietly. Olivia nodded but insisted. "I need your answer." Taking a deep breath, Mark unbuckled his belt and stood, steadying himself on the armrest. "I'm Mark Lawson, Army Sergeant, retired. I'm giving up this seat under pressure." He gathered his bag and moved down the aisle. A small child smiled at him from a nearby seat, and he gave a nod. No anger, no complaint, just acceptance. The new seat was worse than Mark imagined. Tight, uncomfortable, wedged between a student with headphones and a businessman typing rapidly. The air smelled stale, the overhead light flickered. Mark closed his eyes, wincing as he bent his knee. No one noticed him. No one helped. But across the aisle, a woman in her 40s named Rachel watched closely. Rachel had boarded moments before. She saw everything. The conversation, Mark's quiet resistance, the pain etched into his face. She pulled out her phone, not to post or complain, but to message a friend in the airline's customer care. "Veteran forced from medically necessary seat. Flight 221 crew dismissive. Please escalate." She put the phone away, watching Mark endure the tight space with quiet dignity. The cabin doors finally closed. The safety briefing began, but Mark's mind drifted to memories of far-off battlefields, the pain of a shattered knee, and the years spent hiding the scars. In the cockpit, Captain Alex Reynolds reviewed the flight status. Then his console alerted him to the passenger concern flagged by customer relations. He frowned, recognizing the name, Mark Lawson. He scanned the notes, veteran forced from his seat. Without hesitation, Captain Reynolds ordered the plane to hold. He left the cockpit and approached Olivia. "Move the passenger from 10A, he instructed calmly. Olivia hesitated but nodded. Passengers noticed as the captain stepped into the cabin. His presence commanded respect without a word. He stopped at row 45, where Mark sat, eyes half closed. The captain straightened, then raised his hand in a crisp military salute. The cabin fell silent. "Sergeant Mark Lawson," the captain said clearly, "on behalf of Pacific Sky Airlines and as a fellow veteran, I offer my deepest apologies. You should not have been asked to move." The words hung in the air, carrying weight. Passengers whispered, eyes wide. "Olivia," the captain called softly, "escort Sergeant Lawson to seat 2A, first class." Olivia looked surprised but complied. "Yes, Captain." Mark tried to stand, but the captain gently raised a hand. "Please let us make this right." Mark nodded, his face a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. As Mark walked forward, his knees stiff and painful, passengers stood or nodded respectfully. One man reached out, touching his chest in salute. Rachel, seated nearby, watched quietly, tears in her eyes. When Olivia approached the passenger in 2A, a man in a pressed shirt, she apologized. "Sir, we need to reassign your seat." The man looked confused but stepped aside without protest. Mark sank into the spacious seat. It wasn't just the room, it was the dignity. Then a voice rang out from the back. "Sergeant Lawson, I served under you at Camp Liberty in 2005. You saved my life." A younger man, eyes glistening, stood to speak. Mark's expression softened as recognition dawned. Captain Reynolds took the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, today an error was made. A veteran was asked to give up a medically necessary seat for convenience. We failed him, but we do not leave our own behind. Not in combat, not at 30,000 feet." He paused, letting the words settle. "If this flight is delayed, it will be by choice, with pride." Applause filled the cabin, gentle but sincere. Mark remained silent, his heart full. Rachel wiped a tear away. For the first time in years, she believed honor was not forgotten. It was waiting to rise. The plane touched down in San Diego beneath a warm afternoon sun. Mark's granddaughter waited at baggage claim, midshipman uniform crisp. When she saw him limping toward her, she ran, embracing him tightly. His smile reached his eyes. Later, Mark received a letter from the airline, an apology, a refund, and a lifetime guest pass. Weeks later, a letter from the Army reopened his service records, recognizing a heroic act long overlooked. A fellow Marine had survived because Mark never let go. Rachel wrote the story, simple and true. It spread from local news to national headlines, a tribute to quiet courage. Mark's life didn't change much. Same small home, same slow steps, but inside, he carried a new peace. Not all battles end with medals, but sometimes one voice is enough to remind us. We remember. Kindness can turn a small moment, a seat on a plane, into something sacred. Mark's story reminds us that true honor isn't just in medals or ceremonies. It lives in everyday acts of respect and kindness. Sometimes justice takes a quiet moment, a single voice standing up when it matters most. This flight wasn't just about a seat. It was about recognizing sacrifice, dignity, and the human spirit. When we choose empathy over convenience, we restore more than fairness. We restore hope. Let Mark's journey inspire us to see and value those often overlooked, proving that small acts of courage can ripple out, changing lives and reminding us all what it truly means to stand together.